From then on I was elbowed, gouged, dug, planted, raked, hoed, kicked a good deal, sandwiched, and once humiliatingly taken from behind when there was no one in front and nothing to do but run 15 yards to score. I knew then, and appallingly, that the speed, such as it had been, had ended, and only the memory lingered on, and that tackling Olivia de Havilland and Lana Turner and Claire Bloom was not quite the same thing as tackling these Wills and Dies, these Tums and Dicks. The thing to do, I told myself with desperate cunning, was to keep alive, and the way to do that was to hide deeper in the pack. Orders were given, and I went into the maelstrom, and now the real suffering began. The prop with whom I was to share cheek and jowl for the next eternity didn't believe in razor blades since he grew them on his chin, and proceeded to shave me thoroughly for the rest of the game, taking most of my skin in the process, delicacy not being his strong point. He used his prodigious outside arm to paralyze mine and pull my head down to within an inch or two of the earth, gripping my ear between forefinger and thumb, and humming Bread of Heaven under his breath. By the end of the game, my face was as red as the setting sun and very much the same shape. Which is why, on Monday night at the Old Vic, I played the Dane looking like a Swede, with my head permanently on one side and my right arm in an imaginary sling, intermittently crooked and cramped with occasional severe shakes and involuntary shivers as of one with palsy. I suppose to connoisseurs of Hamlet it wasn't your traditional prince, but then it wasn't strictly what the actor playing the part had in mind. A melancholy Dane he was, though. Melancholy he most certainly was. I joined in the communal bath afterwards in a large steamy hut next to the changing rooms, feeling very hard done by and hurt. I drank more than my share of beer in the home team's pub, joined in the singing, and found the enemies curiously shy and withdrawn until the beer had hit the proper spot. Then a particularly grim member of the other side spoke, with what shockingly passed as a smile, splitting the slag heap of his face like an earth tremor. "Come outside with me, will you?" We went out into the cold February night and made our way to the outside gents, black-painted concrete with one black pipe for flushing, wet to the open sky. We stood side by side in silence. There was nothing but the sound of wind and water. Finally I said, "What did you want to tell me?" He hesitated for a moment, and then finally stammered, Well, I just wanted to be able to tell my mam that I had performed with Richard Burton." There's a postscript to this story. Back in December 1962, as a young schoolteacher in London, I decided to pay a visit to Old Deer Park in Richmond to watch the London Welsh team play the visiting Welsh club side Aberavon. I invited a friend to go with me, a girl who lived nearby in London, who came from the Rhondda Valley in Wales as I did, and who was a keen rugby fan. But she declined because, she said, she wanted to spend the day standing outside the Dorchester Hotel in the hope of catching a glimpse of Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor, who were at that time by far the hottest news story in the world. Dismayed by this strange sense of values, of putting film stars before rugby, I went to the game alone, and you can imagine my surprise when I took my seat in the Tin Pot grandstand to find, 2 rows behind me, none other than Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor. Poor Mire, I thought, standing outside the Dorchester, craning her neck, standing on tiptoe, wasting her day, when she could have been here, within touching distance of her idols. At half-time, I decided to pay a visit to the gents, which effectively meant the back of the grandstand. I joined the lineup of men there, and who should come to stand next to me but Richard Burton. We exchanged a few grunted comments about the game and then returned to our seats. At the time, I thought the moral of the story was clear. Get your priorities right, put rugby first, and everything else falls into place. It was only some years later, when I read this story, A Welcome in the Valleys, that I realized that the true significance of the occasion for me was that I, too, had performed with Richard Burton.